The stories you are about to hear are true, and from the point of view of females. This happened during the 4th of July. I was down in Florida for the summer to visit my dad and the other relatives I had down there. I was 15 at the time. My dad, brother, aunt, her 2 kids, and my grandma all went to my aunt's friends to watch the fireworks. My cousin Megan, who was 14, and my friend Naomi, who was 16, and I decided to not go. Instead, we went to the park down the road. They did fireworks out on the lake right there. There was food and dancing, and it just seemed more fun. Plus, we could hopefully find some cute boys to stand by. We left soon after my family left to my aunt's house. Now keep in mind, we were still on the younger side, so the people that think the way you dress depends on how males give you attention, we had on shorts that went to our knees and normal t-shirts. Most definitely not asking for any attention from an older guy. We headed over there, $20 to split between the 3 of us. It was summer in Florida. We definitely needed a drink after walking for 20 minutes, so we find the closest food booth and order some sodas. We wanted to get everything we needed quick, so we could find a good spot to watch the fireworks. It was a good idea to use the restroom before sitting down. We walked to the back of the park where they had the porta pots. They were lined up against large, thick palm trees, all the way in the back of the park, behind the row of food trucks. Secluded, but there were people still around occasionally. I didn't feel unsafe the least bit. I offered to hold our drinks while Megan and Naomi went to use the restroom first. I took the straw of my drink in my mouth and looked around, my gaze focused on the dirt. A few seconds later, I felt a hand touch my shoulder from the back. I jumped and moved to the side to see a man in his later 50s grinning at me. As soon as he opened his mouth, I could tell he was drunk. The speech and the stench of alcohol on his breath. "You're very pretty." Thanks. I was extremely uncomfortable and started scooting away, trying to get away but also not be too rude at the same time. That was when he reached out and grabbed my arm, pulling me towards him, his hand immediately going over my mouth. I tried screaming, but it was hard because the size of his hand, it completely covered not only my mouth, but pushed my nose to the side. I dropped the drinks and he opened up the door to a vacant porta potty, stepping inside. He tried pulling me in, but between him being drunk, me thrashing around, and the porta potty being slightly raised off the ground, he started falling to the side. This caused him to release me so that he could catch his balance. I scrambled out of the porta potty, and Megan and Naomi came out at the same time. They saw the fear that was plastered on my face, and heard the intoxicated yelling coming from the porta pots. We immediately ran out into the large crowd of people, losing the man pretty quickly. Hysterically, I explained to them what happened, and we found a police officer who was walking around, patrolling the park. I gave him all the info I could, plus my number, and he assured me they would do what they could to find him. 2 years later, and I haven't heard anything about it. So, old man who tried pulling me into the porta potty, let's not meet again. Number 2. I was about 9 years old, and my sister was 12. It was a hot summer day, and we were hungry, so we thought we'd take a walk to the Dairy Queen nearby and get some ice cream. We lived in a fairly nice neighbourhood. There was a sweet old lady in a yellow house across the street. Our landlord also lived across the street. My best friend lived on my right. Her grandmother was somewhere on the left. We didn't really know most of our neighbours, at least not on a first name basis, but it felt like a peaceful community. My sister and I were passing one of the apartment duplexes towards the end of the street when a man in a plastic lawn chair sat up and waved to us. He looked to be middle-aged, his head bald and a beer gut swollen beneath a grey wife beater. He had a friendly smile though. He looked like he could be someone's father. "Hi," he said. My sister and I had been taught to avoid strangers, but the kind of strangers we were warned about were scary alleyway boogeymen, the kind that jumped out of cars with knives, or grabbed you in the grocery store, or followed you home. Not friendly neighbours. "Hi," my sister said back. She held my hand, nonetheless. "Where are you girls going?" "Dairy Queen." "You girls like ice cream?" "I got a lot of ice cream if you want to come in. I got chocolate, vanilla, whatever you like." At this point, my sister was obviously uncomfortable. She squeezed my hand tighter. "That's alright, we want blizzards." "So expensive," the man commented. We didn't know how to respond to that. After a few moments, "Where do you live?" If my sister had been older, she probably would have fought to lie, but she didn't. "Just down the street." "What are your names?" My sister squeezed my hand and walked faster. "Don't talk to him," she snipped quietly, before I had the chance to answer for her. There was a pause. "That's a funny name," he laughed. "Tell me your names." Silence. "Come on, I'm just trying to be nice. Why don't you come over and tell me your names?" Silence. "Ignoring someone is rude, you know. Didn't your parents bring you up right?" His tone went from playful to almost threatening. We felt his eyes on us as we passed his house and until we were out of view. But he stayed put in his lawn chair. On the walk, we talked about it and agreed that he seemed really off, so we would just ignore him from now on. Seemed safe. We were gone for a few hours. We decided to walk around town a little after we finished our ice cream, and by the time we came back to our street, the sun was beginning to set. Still, the man was in his lawn chair. We felt his eyes land on us, and they followed us the entire walk past his house, though we didn't say a word until our backs were to him. Yeah, you keep walking. You keep ignoring me," he chuckled. "Just wait till Mummy and Daddy aren't home to save you." I felt a little sick and grabbed my sister's hand tighter. At the last second, instead of turning to go to our yard, she went for my landlord's house and knocked on the door. His son, a good friend of hers, let us in. I remember playing with their pool table in the garage while my sister was inside, on the phone with the police. Finally, my landlord came and escorted us back to our house, where he told my mother everything. On the way in, I didn't see the man in his chair anymore. The police came to our house a few minutes later to ask some questions. Apparently, the man had harassed many other children in the neighbourhood since he moved in and attempted to lure them into his house. He seemed to know he was in trouble after what he said to us, because he fled and the police couldn't find him. That night my sister and I slept in the living room, away from the windows. The police did eventually catch him. They found drugs in his house, and that was what sent him to jail. We found out later that the man had a brother who was a convicted child molester living in another nearby neighbourhood. I don't live there anymore, but sometimes I see him in town when I come back to visit my parents. Number 3. It was the summer of 1996, and I was 15 years old. I grew up in a good neighbourhood, in a typical Swedish university town with my dad. I was a pretty well behaved kid, did good in school, didn't smoke or drink. In fact, I didn't want to go to parties. I didn't have a boyfriend, but I had a crush on a boy at school, and I felt pretty sure he was curious about me too. But we were both shy people. This took place in the end of August, when the light summer nights start to slowly grow darker and the days shorter. It was a very hot summer though, and all the popular girls would wear white tight tops to show off a flat tummy, and one day I'd bought one for myself, just to try and see what it was to be a normal teenage girl. I had those silly shoes too, the Spice Girl inspired ones that sprained many ankles during that era. Afterwards, I wondered if the outfit is what started it all. Suddenly I started to get notes. They were placed in the basket of my bicycle. Notes with messages such as, "Like your style, baby," and "Growing into a woman before my eyes." I didn't tell anyone. I strongly suspected the idiot gang at school, 2 of them who lived close to me, and I thought they were teasing me for changing my style. Teenage logic. We've all been there, right? To show them that I didn't care, I wore my new style all the damn time. One morning, I noticed that someone had stepped on the flowers in the flower beds under several of our windows, and I told my dad about it. He worried it was someone checking the place out, planning a break-in, and asked me to turn on the alarm whenever I was alone. Things had gone missing before. Insignificant things, but still, you never know. My dad owned a rather successful small business, and to celebrate the 10-year mark, he wanted to treat his employees to a weekend away, and had booked a place up north in Corunna. I was used to being left alone at home. Sometimes, his work demanded that he travelled for a week or so, and it wasn't a problem. Again, I was a good kid. And anyway, only a few houses down the street lived a couple that we knew, and they usually checked in on me if I was alone for many days. They had no kids of their own, and often helped out with everyone else's. It was on the Saturday that it happened. I arrived home very late, on my bicycle, after having watched Cutthroat Island at a friend's place. I walked in the front door and noticed a draft. Had I forgotten to close the window before I left? Then I noticed that the alarm was turned off. Had I forgotten that too? I walked through the house to the living room, when suddenly, Mr. W, the man from down the street, stood in front of me. "Hi there, kiddo. Did I scare you? I just came to check in on you." I found this strange, since it was well past 01 at night, and he smelled of alcohol. "I'm fine. I'm off to bed now," I said, and got the strangest feeling. Despite it being a hot summer night, I was shaking with cold. Something inside of me told me that this was an extremely dangerous situation. Something about him was off, as if he was wearing a mask, as if someone else was behind his eyes, not the friendly Mr. W I had known my entire life. "Wine?" he said, and nodded in the direction of a wine bottle. I shook my head no. "I don't drink. My dad, you know," I said, and tried to sound normal, but my voice didn't feel like my own. "Oh, you're almost a grown woman now. You can do as you wish," he continued, pouring wine into an unwashed glass. "I've been watching you. You have really grown." He kept telling me how beautiful I had become, and how he had noticed my new clothes, and that I surely knew that it was an open invitation to men. "I'm a nice person, don't you think?" he said. "I will be good to you. You can trust me. I will be real gentle." I start to back towards the front door, but he stops me by grabbing hold of my upper arm and pulling me towards him. "Don't be like that. No one likes a tease," he says. And when I try to break free, he laughs and goes, "Wanna play, huh? I can play," and starts to shake me. I feel how much stronger he is than I, and realise I have to make him let go long enough for me to run. At this point, it's as if someone else hijacked my brain, and I started saying and doing things that I wasn't even aware of until afterwards. "Yeah, I like to play," I hear myself say, and he smiles and starts to touch my hair. He dragged me off to the bedroom, and I tried to pretend to be into it. I had never had sex, or even truly wanted to have sex, and I had no idea how to fake it, but I tried. The moment he tossed me down on the bed, I said, "You must go lock the front door and turn on the alarm," as I tried to look eager and not scared out of my mind. "Okay," he said, "don't move." I was on my feet faster than I thought possible, and locked the bedroom door from the inside. My plan had however not turned out as I had hoped. He had taken me to my dad's room, not my bedroom. My bedroom had a window that led out onto the roof of the garage, and from there I could have jumped, but this room had no such escape, but it had a phone. My brain had forgotten the number to the police, and the only number I remembered was my dad's work phone. He answered almost right away. My dad phoned the cops from his other phone and I still had him on the line while Mr. W tried to open the lock with the screwdriver, shouting at me and promising to gut me like a fish when he got in. My dad also phoned another neighbour, Mr. K. He used to be in the military and often bragged about how he would treat any burglar to a trip to the emergency room if given the chance. Mr. K arrived before the police, and he didn't break his promise. But the sound of the fighting outside the room was terrible, and I had no idea who was on the winning side. Mr. K was an old guy, but fit. But what if Mr. W had a weapon? I don't think I dared to breathe until Mr. K asked me if I was okay. And I didn't dare get out of that room before the police arrived. And even then, I almost was unable to move, as if my mind had escaped my body. A man who I had known since toddlerhood had suddenly started to stop me and planned to use the fact that my dad was out of town to rape me, and God knows what else. I trusted him, and I had been so wrong. I still have trust issues to this day. I spoke to his wife once, long after the incident. She had filed for divorce, and she told me that the reason she refused to have children with him was that deep down, she feared that they would not have been safe in their home. Mr. W is dead now, and I'm glad. We will never meet again.